Hello, everyone, and welcome back to We Can Do This. We Got This. I am once again your hostess with the mostest, Julie Val, and I would like to say welcome back to all of you who have been so wonderful as part of my audience. So I'd like to start out by saying, please remember to subscribe so that you get the notifications of when I go live. And don't forget to click that like button below, because I love to hear your comments and I love coming to you every week. And I am so excited about the topic today. I'm a little nervous, but I am very excited about it. And as you can see from the title that I had on my live stream topic is the big debate: work from home, in the office, or hybrid. Now, this has been a hot topic. We all know this ever since the beginning of the homedemic. And we all lived through it. We all made it through it. But it's still a major part of discussions. What's better? What's worse? Companies are making decisions again. And we're changing constantly. We're doing one thing, then all of a sudden we're changed to do something else. And those of us who have families, it can just make your entire life topsy-turvy. But what I want to do is I want to talk about all three. I have my own personal experience of what I had to live through and which one of these three I did. But I want to go through all three of them first. And I want to give you some facts about what has been found about each one of these areas. And they all have their pros and they all have their cons. There's not one that is, the 100% right answer. And I feel it's very personal to us, right? You are very different from me. We're all different in our personalities and what we feel comfortable with. And we just fit into very different individual lives. That's life. But when we're thrown into these tailspins, some things have worked better for some of us than others. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is totally remote. And when I say totally remote, the definition of that is working from your home 100% of the time. And this has always been part of society, but just not a big part of it. There are people who have worked from home their whole lives, and it's just their norm, and they enjoy that. But for those people who were thrust from a total in-work environment to a total remote environment, it was a very drastic change. And there are some things that were found that happened with this big of a change, positive and negative. So we're going to go through them right now. And one thing working from home, you can have a balanced work-life environment from a communication perspective, from a collaboration perspective, from a family perspective, and you can grow your career in a way that you can't do that in the office. With the extra time you have, you can learn new things. You have the extra time to explore interests and to do different things with that extra time. So to start out with, when you have a balanced life between your work and your home environment, that can help you be successful professionally, because when you have that level of happiness and that balance between both, that means you can be more successful at both. And not only that, but it adds a level of convenience. Like I said, you can become more mindful. They talk about mindfulness. You can have that peace of mind. You're in a comfortable environment. You're in your own home. And you can take the valuable asset of time which we all know none of us have enough of these days. But if you're not commuting, if you're more structured and you're already here in your own home, that valuable asset of time can become a big advantage for working from home. And that flexibility is vital because that, like I said, can give you the opportunity. You can explore new things. You can look at new avenues of creativity. You can look at something new, something exciting. It's something different. And sometimes change can be a good thing. We're all very scared of change, but sometimes change can be a real benefit and it can be really exciting. And we need to take that and use that to our advantage. And one of the great opportunities, and I'm not talking from something like a hobby, I'm not talking about a personal hobby. When you have extra time, you can grow yourself professionally in an environment that is positive to doing that. You can learn new things, whether it's about your own job that you do now, or if you want to explore other job opportunities in other industries, other facets of things that interest you. You can take online trainings during that time to educate yourself, pick yourself up a notch, take it a step higher and bring that knowledge back to your current job. Bring it to your company, bring it to your position. Let people see that this time that you have, you're using it to your advantage to better yourself for your company. And you're making yourself a better person by learning something new. There is always a benefit into learning something new and something different because it makes us better people. And by doing that, we can make ourselves more sellable. We can sell ourselves as a better asset to a company. And in the long run, that makes it better for everybody and can increase our value as an employee to a potential employee. Or even if you want to stay where you are, let that company see that you are a benefit to them, even though you're not in the office. You're using that extra time to better yourself so you can make your company better and move it to the next level. There's a lot more benefits, that are part of this where there is very different stress that we all have in our lives. There's good stress and there's bad stress. Well, I know that we have stressful lives at home, and that stress is different from the stress we have in the office. And the stress we have in the office depends on it's about our paycheck. Our life in the office is about our paycheck. So for the most part, the stress we have in the office is not normally good. The stress we have at home can be good or bad. And a lot of times it can be very bad, but a lot of times the stress, we can take it, the good type, and it makes a great thing for us personally. And that can be exciting. Like I said, we're all afraid of change, but it can be a good thing. And should I even say this? I mean, when you're working from home, boy, are you saving on money. And I'm saying you're saving on a lot more than gas. And when I sit in my office every day and I watch other employees, they buy lunch out every day. That's the first thing. And it's not cheap to get your lunch out any longer. By the time you pay for the food, which is skyrocketing right now and is going to continue to get worse, you've got to pay delivery fees. And then you always have the wonderful food in the vending machines. How could we live without that, right? I see people go back and forth to those machines all day long. That adds up. If you go there once, twice, 3 times or more a day, you might as well just buy it in bulk, put it into baggies from the store, save yourself some money. Bring stuff into work with you and save that money. Whereas when you're at home, you're not spending that money on food. You're not spending that money on gas. There is that benefit, and it's a big benefit. We're all looking to save a dime here and there, and it adds up over time. And what about the people who drive to work and they have to stop at that Starbucks, or they got to stop at that corner store just to get that cup of coffee or that donut? It all adds up over time. And when you're at home, you buy it from the store, you can buy it in bulk. You save money, and you're already here. You don't have to walk anywhere to get it, just to your kitchen, or keep it by your side. But mark my words, that can add up poundage. So be careful with that one. And it is, working remote is a really, really new concept for all of us. This was not a norm. It became a norm, and very quickly, I might add. But there can also be some negatives to working remotely all the time at home too. I already mentioned one. You can put on the pounds. You're not getting up from your chair to go to a conference room or go out to the production floor or go to a staging, or you're not walking in the parking lot. There's not a lot of exercise on your couch. So that is a big negative. And lack of physical activity is a big thing these days. It's really hard, especially a lot of us work in offices. We sit in a chair all day long. And in an office, we're constantly getting up and down and going here and there. We don't sit there all day long with blinders on and just look at a screen. We move. We may not do it a lot, but we move. At home, there's a tendency, the word couch potato fits in perfectly. That's what we do. So you got to watch that one if you're working remote. That's definitely a negative. And that can also affect your health. Working remote can affect your health in so many different ways. It can affect you physically. Not getting that exercise can take a really bad effect on your health, not just weight-wise, but there's a lot of other ways it can affect you. And it can also affect you mentally. You're not talking to anybody all day long. You're there by yourself all day long. Now, you may have some pets. They're great assistants. I have mine. They're great. Or you might have the TV, but you're not talking to it. It's just noise. Or you have a radio on. The only communication you have is through technology. And technology, while it is great and has had us come a long way, it's very impersonal. And there's a lot of room there for misunderstandings and missing important points. And there's a lot to be said for in-person when it comes to that. So that can also be a negative whenever it comes to working from home. And while we embrace the flexibility of that, there is also a benefit of having a structured day. When you have to go out of your house, you have to get up at a certain time in the morning. You have to get ready. You have to take your stuff with you. You have to drive into the office. Then you get into the office. Some people have to do a time clock. You have to be there on time. You have a very structured day. And a lot of us like having structure in our lives. We like having dependability. And when you're remote, when you have that flexibility, that can really throw some people off. They are kind of lost without that structure. And with some people, it's very hard to create a structure with that type of an environment, especially when you're there by yourself. It's hard because you don't have someone you're answering to that says, okay, you got to do this, do this, do this, do this. You just have you. And that's tough to put that into place whenever you have just you. So, and the other part of that is there have been people, I have heard stories, we've all heard the stories where people have taken advantage of that type of work situation. And I personally don't know anyone who has done that, at least not that I could prove, but I know I've heard stories where that is what's given working remotely or outside the office a bad name, and that's not fair because those cases are few and far between. And that comes down to the individual. That doesn't come down to the environment itself. It comes down to some people just can't handle that type of environment. So they don't belong in that type of an arrangement. They need a structured environment like the workplace is. So, like I said, there's good and there's bad things, but we're talking about 100% remote. We're talking about no interaction with others whatsoever. You take the good, you take the bad. Like I said, there's pros and there's cons. So that being said, we're going to move on to in-house, in the work environment. And once again, we're going to start with the good and the bad and some ugly. Now, it does provide the structure and the routine that we just talked about. And I do want to say that during the homedemic, and even now, there are so many individuals out there who didn't have the opportunity to work hybrid or to work remote because of their job. You know, people who work in production environments, who work on a production floor, receiving, shipping, nurses, doctors, anybody who services the public, you didn't have that opportunity to experience a different type of work style. And to all of you, I tip my hat because you were all out there doing your thing in an environment that was very scary, sometimes dangerous. And to those of you who did that, well, the rest of us was given an opportunity to not have to do that. I say thank you to all of you. You helped to make a difference during that time, and you still continue to do. You're still doing your thing. And you've always had that structure there, and you've always had that routine. And maybe for your work-life balance, maybe that's always worked for you. Maybe that going to work and you do your work, maybe you only have to work an 8-hour day. Maybe you're in a job where you don't have to work overtime. You've got that 8 hours, and once you've got that 8 hours, you shut it off at the door and you're back to your life. And so maybe you find that work-life balance by doing that. And that's great. That's okay. If that works for you, that's awesome. And it does eliminate. Now we do have distractions. I'm going to talk about this a little bit because we have distractions both at home, no matter if we're working remotely or whatever. And we do have distractions at work. But there's a difference between the distractions from home and work, right? The distractions at home are you get a delivery at the door, or your mom or dad calls you, or the neighbor knocks on the door. Whereas in the work environment, the distractions you have most of the time are distractions that involve your job or your task at hand, or your manager, or there's a meeting that's been called, or something to that effect that takes you away from your job task and what you're doing. But that type of distraction is what's beneficial to the company and to what you're doing. Now, that being said, there are distractions in the workplace too, and we all have them, where there's gossiping. There's those employees who just come to you and they just want to talk, they're just not real into their job. They're just not into their thing. They just want to find something else to do. And then they pull you into that time for them. And then it hurts you, But for the most part, those distractions, hopefully, are few and far between, and the distractions that you have are work related and beneficial to what you're doing and to your company and your job. It also allows for natural collaboration. And there is a lot to be said with meetings and talking through problems in person. Because, like I said, with technology, there is a tendency to lose things in translation or to misunderstand things. Whereas when you're upfront and personal and you're talking about projects or ideas or changes that are going to be happening, you're in person, you can read that person's face. If there's something that you don't understand, you can ask that question right away because you're right there. And that type of an environment is definitely a benefit and beneficial when it comes to communication being a very vital part of your understanding of what's going to be happening or what's coming or what's changing for you maybe in your job. So that's definitely a benefit as well. And when you leave the workplace at the end of the day and you can shut it off, it puts that emphasis of disconnecting from that environment. You know that you've done the best you can for your company there. But when you walk out that door, you're not an employee anymore. You're you. You are into your life, your regular day-to-day stuff. And you can start thinking about, okay, what do I got to do tonight? Do I need to throw a load of laundry in when I get home? Oh, I got to remember to get the mail. Oh my gosh, I got to go pick up medication that I need. Whatever it is, you shut it off. There is that definite line. And that's a great thing. That's a great thing. There's no stress about your work contacting you or you being maybe getting a phone call. It's gone. You got your space. And we all need that space. We don't want to live our jobs all day long. And that's another danger about working remotely. Some people can't shut it off. And, for years, that was me. It didn't matter if I was in the office or not. I could not shut it off. And that is a nightmare. You need to shut it off. So when you have that line, that's definitely a big thumbs up. And you also have other things. We're human beings. We're meant to be social creatures. You want to socialize. You want to talk to people during the day. You can network. Networking in person is definitely awesome. That's what we're meant to do. We're meant to talk to each other. We're meant to work with each other. We're meant to help each other. And doing that in person is something that you can't do when you're not in that environment. You can be supportive, but once again, you're either talking on a phone or like I'm talking to a camera right now. A lot of us have Zoom or Microsoft Teams. That's a big part of our environment, and it's a great tool. Don't get me wrong. They're great tools to use. They're great tools to have, and they are definitely beneficial, especially if you're in an industry where you have to communicate globally or even just from different sides of the United States. But we're meant to be social creatures. And like I said, a lot of us like to have that structure there. We like to, we wake up early. And I'm not a morning person. Trust me on this, I'm not a morning person. But a lot of us aren't, but some of us are. And some of you like to wake up early. Some of you wake up earlier, you get your cup of coffee, you do this, you get into your car, blah, 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 the whole day. That is definitely a benefit too, because you know what you're going to do, you know when you're going to do it, you know what order you're going to do it in, and you know how you're going to do it, because you do it day after day after day. And there's some other benefits too. It's routine. It makes it a smoother, more efficient environment. You can be very efficient in the office. Not that you can't be at home, but you can be efficient in the office because you're in a chair, you're at a desk or in a cubicle, or on the production floor, and you're in your space, and your job is right here in front of you all the time, all day long, every second of the day. So it can lead to optimize that productivity. Now, with that being said, there are some negatives to both remote and working at your job in-house. And some of them are the same. And one I touched on is when you're at home and you're working remote, you're sitting there all day long and you can munch all day long. And you can put on the pounds pretty easily. But that can also happen in the work environment. And it doesn't happen for everybody, but I can tell you as an office worker, we're the ones that can happen to very easily. We can go to that machine. We can munch all day. I personally do intermittent fasting, so I don't have that problem. But some days I give in and I cave. I'm not perfect. I do my best, but you can put on the pounds too. And maybe you are in an office environment where you don't move from your desk as much. Maybe you're in customer service. Customer service, you have to be there when that phone rings. You have to be there to help those customers with no matter what it is. Or say you're a data input, and maybe that data has to be in by certain times during the day, and you can't leave that desk. You have to be at that desk. Maybe you don't have the opportunity to leave a lot. Depends on what you do from your desk. But there is that chance for it to affect your health. And part of that is our muscle strength. It goes down, our energy level goes down, and our mental status. We'll work, focus on work all day long. Need I say, have to say, boy, does that bring on stress, right? Stress. Get this done. We have to do this. We have to go to this meeting. I have to get this done along with that meeting, whatever it is. Both situations can really affect your health. And there can be mental repercussions, such as maybe you end up with depression. Maybe you have anxiety attacks. Once again, that can come from either environment. No matter what environment you're in, it can be brought on, but it would maybe brought on by different reasons. So both of them, you really have to balance out. Some of them can have the same negatives about them, no matter what you do. So keep that in mind when you're looking at both extremes, whether it's totally remote, totally in the office. You really need to be cognizant of taking care of yourself and what works best for you. And sometimes if we feel like something isn't working for us, maybe we don't have that chance for flexibility. But that's where it comes down to communication. Talk to your manager. Talk to your plant manager. Talk to someone in management that you have a confidence level with and you're comfortable talking to. Tell them how you feel. Tell them, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable in this type of environment. I'm not comfortable in an office. Maybe you want a cubicle so that you have more social interaction. Or maybe you're in a cubicle and if there's an opportunity to have an office where you just can't concentrate. These are the types of things you need to communicate. Maybe you're not comfortable working from home. Maybe you want to come into the office. I'm sure they won't complain about that, but you need to take steps to make sure that you're safe doing that. You need to take those steps no matter where you're working from. So with both of those, that being said, we need personal social interaction. Some people are more introverted. Some of us would prefer to work remote. But there's also a third choice, right? A third amigo that we need to talk about. This is what I experienced during those 3 years that we were all kind of in chaos in all parts of our lives. And that is a hybrid arrangement. Now, my hybrid arrangement, and Every company is different. Some people had hybrid arrangements where the company wanted you in there 3 days a week and you could work from home too. My arrangement was I worked from home 3 days and I had to go in 2 days. And when I say I had to go in 2 days, there in the industry that I'm in, security is a big part of that. We have to answer to the federal government, and security is vital. We have things on technology like, VPN and firewalls and stuff like that. But there's still always the fear there are certain things that just cannot be done outside of the work environment for security purposes. And so there are times where you need that hybrid work balance related, that type of an arrangement. And I had no problem with that at all. I loved it because I had my life and I had more of my life than I normally did. And I appreciated that and I thrived on it. That made me a better employee and that made me happier. And I have to tell you, I was so much more efficient working from home than I was in the office because I personally didn't have distractions at home. Okay, I can't say I didn't have any, but I also was permitted to have 2 15 breaks each day. So during those 15 breaks, that's when I did my laundry, put my laundry in, or did the dishes, or got the mail, or did whatever. And I also was lucky enough to have the opportunity. I could work outside. I took my laptop outside with me. I was in the fresh air. I was in a different environment. I was in nature. That sounds kind of corny, but believe it or not, I was in a meeting one day and there were deer in my neighbor's yard. And while I'm in this meeting, listening and participating, I actually had the best background in the world. I had deer. I'm sitting there watching. But then the other 2 days of the week, I had to go in the office. I had purchase orders I had to print. And there was other communications that had to be done in person. Now, I also had the agreement where if there was a third day, I had to go in the office if someone was coming in or my manager needed me for an audit or something to that effect. Absolutely. I was there. All I said was, please just give me a little bit of advance notice, even a day. It didn't matter. And I was there. So some days I was in there 4 days a week. It depended. It was flexible though. And that meant the world to me. And maybe you had that type of arrangement where there was that balance of personal and work that made you more efficient, more happy, less stress-filled. Now, I'm not saying I didn't have stress. I still did, but it was a lot lower because I knew if I was stressed out one day in the office, I knew the next day, if I was working from home, I could take that breath and just got through the day. And then when I got to that door, it was just like, breathe out, get in my truck, big smile on my face. And I knew the next day I was going to be productive and I was going to be able to be less stressed and have that space that I needed. And that's what made me happy. And maybe you find that too. And there's a lot of companies now who have those arrangements and are finding that it is making their employees happier, more productive, more efficient, and it works for them. And there's a lot of big companies out there. The one that comes to mind real quickly is Google. We all know Google, and they do that. But there are also a lot of companies who said, absolutely no, everybody has to be back in the office. It is a flat out requirement. It is non-negotiable. It doesn't matter what your scenario is, what your situation is. Doesn't matter. You have to be in this office 5 days a week. And I have to tell you, it was a very rough transition for me to go back into the office full time. Now, that being said, now it's been a while. since I've had to make that transition again. And a lot of the old stuff is coming back. The routine, getting up, driving to work, being in the office, going to conference rooms. There are still times where I can still do the Zoom, Microsoft Teams thing for meetings. And I have an office, so I do kind of have my space. If I need to shut my door, if I'm having a little bit of a rough day or just need to take that 15-minute break just for me, I shut the door. And so I've worked back into it. But of the three arrangements, it has its downside too. I have to admit that, as happy as I was with it. You don't have that routine. One day I had to get up early, do the routine, boom, boom, boom. And then there were other days. Then when I was at home, I had to go back to an uncertain flexibility routine. So I was constantly flipping from one to the other. And that was a little challenging at times. I can't lie about that. It was a little challenging at times. So it does put you in a position where if a neighbor knows you're home that day, or if your mom or dad know you're home that day, or somebody knows you're home that day, you do have those distractions, like I said, but it's different from work distractions. So there were downsides to it too. So of the three, there's not one that's better than the other. There's not one that's worse than the other. They all have their pros and their cons. And each of us as individuals, I think each of us found which one fits, which one we like better. There were some people that had the opportunity in the office. They never worked from home. They found that environment made it worse for them, made it very inefficient for them, that they needed that structure. So even though they had the opportunity, they stayed in the office and they were happy. And like I said, a lot of it boils down to your company and your manager. Communicate it. What's wrong? What are you feeling unsure about? Is there something that's making you inefficient? Talk. You need to do that. If you don't do that, you're not going to at least have a chance to make things better for yourself. Keep that communication open with whoever you feel comfortable with in management and with the company. And I can't guarantee things will change in a way that'll be what's in your best interest personally. But I can say that if you speak up, even sometimes the littlest things can change and can make things just that little bit enough better so that you can be happier and be efficient and be yourself. And that's what it's all about, right? You want to be yourself no matter where you are. And you want to be as happy as you can. And you want to be social, but you also need your space. Like I've said before, it's all about this. It's all about balance. So now, as I've come to the close of our discussion about the three amigos, I want to bring something to you, my audience. I have a few questions for you that I want your feedback on. I've done this now since the end of December, and I have absolutely found a love for doing this. My goal for doing these live streams was to reach out to people who maybe feel alone. No one should feel alone. I wanted to bring topics to you that I had experience with or that I've seen and that maybe I've had questions on. Or there have been times where I felt really lonely or felt alone and felt like no one understood me. No one understood what I was going through. Or maybe I want to know what your opinions are on things. I just don't want to hear me talk. I want to hear your opinions. I have topics that I have chosen that I'm going to be bringing to you in the future. A lot of them. Some work related, some not. But I want ideas from you. What kind of topics would you like to hear me talk about? I would love to hear what you want to hear. And I'll do some research. I'll go out of my safety box here, and I would love to talk about what you want to hear about. And what time? What about the time I'm doing this? I'm doing this 4 o'clock Eastern time, from my wonderful Western Pennsylvania home. And this is kind of what works for me, but does it work for you? What's a good time for you? Maybe I need to take this from being live to maybe I'll do some pre-recorded ones that I know that even though I'm doing this live, you can always watch the replay at your leisure. Maybe I need to do some that are pre-recorded too. If that's better for you, maybe that's what I need to do. I love doing them live, and maybe you just like watching the replays. That's okay too, but let me know if there's a time. If you really would like to watch live, if you really want to chat with me, because I have not had anybody chat with me, and I would love to chat with you. But if there's a different time, maybe I could accommodate that and do a different time. We can look at that. We can maybe work something out there. And once again, now that we've come to me ranting and raving, I want to say to all of you again, thank you. I appreciate all of you. This has been amazing for me, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I appreciate every single one of you. I believe in all of you. And from the depths of my heart and soul, as I always say, we can do this. We got this because we're doing it together. Take care, my friends. I wish you the best. Have a great rest of the weekend, and I will see you soon and talk to you next week. Take care.